Hey everybody, I'm Greg Hairslack. I'm one of the co-founders here at Archivist, and today I'm very excited to share with you two updates from us. One is that we have publicly released V1 of our Archivist API for developers to start building on top of their Archivist data. And two is that in conjunction with the release of that API, we have collaborated with one of our users to build our first open source project, which is our new Foundry VTT mod. So today I wanted to run through the mod with you and just give you a general overview of what that looks like. So I currently have a very bare bones kind of Foundry world that I've created. I've got just a few things in here. There's a single scene for Avernus. We're going to sort of import and sync our Descent into Avernus campaign. I've got a single actor, Dante, who's got a very sad bear biography and backstory. I've got a single item, the Infernal Puzzle Box. Similarly, does not have a description for it yet. And then I've got a single mysterious note journal entry, and these are just kind of pieces in place to show you how some of the kind of sync detection works when you fire up the mod. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you have your world ready to go is go to your Archivist profile in your settings, and we've added a couple of new tabs. One is the Foundry mod tab, which will have some sort of general overview documentation of how the mod works. And then we have this install button, which will take you to our Foundry mod listing, so you can install the mod to your world from there. And then the second is this developer tab, which is where you will go to generate your brand new API key, at which point hopefully you will immediately and safely store it somewhere, because you'll only see it once and then it gets hashed for obvious security reasons. So once you have those things in place, you can drop back into your Foundry world, click into the settings, manage modules, and then the Archivist sync mod will be available for you to enable, at which point Foundry is going to ask you to reload the VTT. You hit yes. And once you do that, you'll be greeted with our handy setup wizard here, which has some overview text. And if you ever need to review how stuff works or you have questions, there's a link to the documentation directly in this wizard. It's also available in the mod settings under your game settings tab in Foundry. But we know what we're doing. So we're just going to go ahead and click Start World Setup. And this is where you'll be prompted to enter your API key. Thankfully, we already have ours handy. It's going to validate it for us. And in this next page, the API is going to pull in all of your active Archivist campaigns. If you don't have one yet, it's not a problem. You just click Create Campaign, and then the API will create an Archivist campaign for you with the same name as your Foundry world. We happen to already have a Descent into Avernus campaign that's got tons of content that we would like to import into our Foundry world. So we're just going to go ahead and select Descent into Avernus, hit next. And then this step 4 page is going to be kind of a reconciliation of data between the two systems. So on this list on the left-hand side, you'll see all of the Archivist data that's got brought in for our characters, items, and locations. And then on the left side, you'll see all of the Foundry data. So if you're going the other way and you have a Foundry world that's chock full of content, you can also import that data into your Archivist campaign. And if neither system has any data to sync together, that's perfect. You're starting from scratch. You can kind of skip this step. But in my case, I've got a bunch of Archivist data and a little bit of Foundry data. And so you'll see in this column, we've got Dante, which was an actor that was in the Foundry campaign that I showed you earlier. And we've successfully mapped that to the PC Dante in our Archivist campaign. And we do this by name. So if there's any differentiation between documents and it didn't get matched, you can just select it from these dropdowns that we provide you. So just make sure you run through that for characters, items, and locations. And if there are any records you don't want involved in the sync, you just sort of deselect those boxes. They'll be selected by default, so be sure you review those. And then in this next page is where we decide from the documents that you wish to import from Archivist into your Foundry campaign, which ones do you want us to create actors, items, and scenes for? We're going to create a bunch of custom sheets that are going to have the Archivist data in them for you to check out and review whenever you want. But in addition to that, if you'd also like us to create the actual tokens and stuff that go into your actors and items and scenes tabs, we can do that here. Again, these are all selected by default. So if you would prefer not to have all of that clutter, or you only want some of them created, just make sure you check those boxes accordingly. And then after you hit next, you'll be taken to this summary sort of page where we'll give you the counts of all of the records that are getting imported from Archivist, all of the items, locations, sorry, actors, items, and scenes that are going to be created in Foundry, everything that's going to be exported from Foundry into Archivist, and then a count of the linked entities from each of those categories. And just a note of, I guess, caution here, when you are importing into your Archivist campaign, we do advise that you stay away from importing the entirety of compendiums. If you do massive like D&D Beyond imports and things like that, you want to make sure that anything that you're importing into your Archivist campaign has to do with narrative components that are sort of immediately relevant to the campaign. So you may have a direwolf stats in your compendium, but if the party is never going to fight a direwolf, then it's not super useful to have inside your Archivist campaign. But anyway, so if these values end up looking good to you, you can click Begin Sync, and then you'll be presented with a couple of other settings that you can decide on right now, and you can also have access to toggle these on and off later in the mod settings as well. But we have project descriptions, which is a setting where I mentioned we'll already have these sort of custom sheets that are created for you. But if you would also like to have the Archivist descriptions projected onto the actors and items objects that are in your Foundry world, meaning you could open the actor sheet directly and see the Archivist description, you'll want to have that project descriptions setting on. And we can reliably do this for D&D 5e and Pathfinder 2e currently. We do make a sort of best guess effort to find the correct fields for other systems, but you can toggle that on and off as you wish. And then this second option is for real-time syncing. So it's a very convenient setting, but it's also kind of powerful and sensitive, I suppose. But if you have this enabled, after you run your initial sync, all of the custom sheets that we create will be linked to Archivist documents. So if you have real-time sync enabled, if you edit any of the titles or descriptions in those documents, if you delete those documents, if you create new documents, all of those changes will be reflected directly in your Archivist campaign. So it's very convenient if you make sort of local changes and don't want to have to sort of resync the two systems manually. But if you're worried about making changes that you don't want permanently reflected in Archivist, you can toggle that setting off. We're going to leave it on. And once you feel good about all that, you can click Begin Sync, and you will see the Archivist API starting to do its work. I will have a note here. Importing data from Archivist into your Foundry world will go much faster because these are sort of read operations and we're just taking data in. If you're exporting a bunch of data from Foundry into Archivist, it is going to take a little bit longer because we're not just sort of making writes for that data, but we're also generating embeddings for all of those descriptions. So you have access to that information through the Ask Archivist feature, which I will actually get to in a little bit because we have included it in the Foundry module, which is a lot of fun for both GMs and their players. And if you've used the Archivist Ask feature before, we also have settings to toggle the accessibility for that if you prefer your players don't have access to the chat, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So once the sync is successfully completed, you'll notice you've got, I'll show you a few things. One is we have a bunch of new data in the Foundry world. We've created a bunch of scenes from all of the locations in the Archivist campaign. Obviously, we've created a bunch of new actors. And specifically, if we pull up Dante, you'll remember before his backstory was empty. Now we've projected his entire backstory that we've had Archivist create for us into that actor token. And same thing with items. If we go into the Infernal Puzzle box, now we've got a nice description for that one. And most notably, you'll see your journals page has changed. We've added some things for this. We have dedicated Archivist directories for all of the custom sheets that we create. So we're attempting to not clutter up any existing journal content that you have, but all of your Factions, items, locations, NPCs, and PCs will be in here. You can see the factions that we've imported from Archivist. And just a note on factions, there's not a sort of one-to-one mapping of factions in Archivist to objects in Foundry. So factions will remain a custom sheet in this case, and it won't directly be linked to an actor or an item, but you'll still have that information available for you. And then we also have this synced with Archivist button that's been installed here. So when you have future sessions and Archivist generates, new NPC artifacts for you and other things that you want to, import and make your Foundry world current, you'll just click that button. And then this will query the Archivist API and find any differences between your current Foundry world data and what's been generated that's new in your Archivist campaign, and it will pull all of that in for you. The other thing I'll note is that we also have this recaps folder. So again, there's not a direct analog to a Foundry object for this, but we do import all of your recaps. So, and they should be organized chronologically, and they also have the dates up here as well. So that's easily accessible for you. And if any of the documents that we've created in here, if you want them accessible to your players, that's awesome. If there are certain documents that you'd prefer to hide and not have your PCs have access or your players have access to, we've got visibility toggle buttons right here, so you can just turn those on and off. And then there's also sort of a mass visibility setting in the mod settings itself to just turn everything open for your players to check out. So I'm going to walk through some of these different custom sheets that we've created because some of them have interesting characteristics. I think we'll start by looking at a character sheet. So this is a PC sheet specifically. All the custom sheets will have some characteristics in common. For instance, this info tab will be there for all of them. And these will contain the Archivist description that got brought in, and it will also contain sort of a linked Foundry object if one exists. In this case, we have an actor object that Stuart is linked to. So that will be here, and these are easy to change as well. So if I decided that, this isn't correct, Stuart is not the person to link to that, then I can just drag an actor from that tab onto this drop zone, and then it automatically gets updated. And then obviously these sheets the actor sheets themselves are directly linkable and accessible from here. Gonna swap that back so we make sure that Stuart is correctly linked there. And then specifically for character sheets, we've got an additional kind of feature here where you can place the token directly onto the scene. So if I click that, I now see Stuart is available on the scene for me to do stuff with. So that's just a little bit of quality life convenience. I'm going to take him off, and we'll open his sheet back up. So that's kind of the info tab and specific character features. The other things that will be ubiquitous across all of the different custom sheets is we'll have these sort of tabs on the left that have counts next to them. And you'll notice these are all the different sort of compendium entity types from Archivist. And something we do that's cool in Archivist is when you have a session analyzed by the tool, we'll generate sort of wiki links or connections between different narrative elements in your campaign. And so all of those get imported when you do your sync with Archivist. So Stuart, for example, in his description, he obviously references himself, but he also references Talbot, who's another PC in the game. And we also have the same thing for NPCs, for any items they've interacted with, same thing with locations and factions. So all of those sort of narrative relationships are available for you at a glance, which is fun. Another tab that will be available across all sheets is journals. So I mentioned that we have these sort of custom sheets that we store for you, but if you have any journals that are non-Archivist custom sheets that you'd also like to have related to these different custom sheets we create, you can also just drag and drop. So if I wanted this mysterious note to have a relationship with Stuart, I can just drop that into his card. And with the way that Foundry has more or less recently kind of reconstructed how journals work, they have a sort of parent journal entry container that can contain a bunch of pages. And so if you only want bits and pieces of a journal entry to relate to an entity, you can also just drag those specific pages in there as well. So in this case, I've got both the mysterious note as a whole and this chapter 1 as a relation. And you can just click the unlink icon to get rid of those as well. And then for every custom sheet, there's also a GM notes specific tab. So anything you want in here that you don't want your players to have access to, you can put in that sheet, no problem. So that is characters specifically. Items and factions are a little bit more generic. Locations are a little bit more interesting. So if I open up Elfsong Tavern, you'll see that a lot of the things are similar. We've got all of the different tabs on the left here. We've got the description that came in from Archivist, but we've got 3 sort of special things here. One is the linked scene. So characters will have linked to actors, items will have linked items, and then locations will have linked scenes. So in this case, we created Elfsong Tavern, and if we wanted to take the party there, we would just click that button to open that scene. And then we've also got this parent location drop zone here. So it's indicated as Baldur's Gate. This data is also imported from Archivist. We have the ability to sort of indicate kind of nested locations, and Elfsong Tavern is a place in Baldur's Gate. If you wanted to change this, again, it's as easy as dragging and dropping. Let's say, for instance, Elfsong Tavern, for some inexplicable reason, gets plane shifted to Avernus. You can just sort of drag that location onto that drop zone, and then this gets updated. And then a note as well, if you have real-time syncing on, these actions are again mirrored inside your Archivist campaign. So what I just did didn't just update the parent location locally in Foundry, it also updated the parent location of Elfsong Tavern in the Archivist campaign, which is fun. And so below that in this bottom section, you'll see there's an ancestors and descendants section. And this is where all of the sort of nesting for locations will live. So you'll see that Elfsong Tavern, this recently was updated to having Avernus as its ancestor, and then Elfsong Tavern's here, and then descendants are listed below. I have incorrectly listed Bleeding Citadel as a descendant of Elfsong Tavern. So I can open up that sheet, and then you'll see that the parent location is listed incorrectly as Elfsong Tavern. I can just unlink that, and then that's corrected. I will have to reopen Elfsong Tavern for that to re-render, but now you can see that sort of location ancestors descendants tree is corrected. So that's sort of it for a lot of the custom sheets. You can also create any new custom sheet type by any of these buttons on the top. And then the last feature I want to show you, last but certainly not least, is we've included the Ask Archivist feature inside of this mod as well. It's a feature of the new API. So if you click this sort of AI icon on the sidebar here, it'll open a sort of new chat log. And if you've used this feature before, you know that we don't just analyze your sessions and come up with summaries for you. We also sort of append all of that information into a collective AI knowledge base for your campaign. So you can ask any kind of questions that you want. It's been available in our Discord bot and directly on the site, but now it's going to be available directly in your Foundry VTT, which hopefully is a lot more convenient. But I can ask questions like, tell me how Dante met Talbot. And so this chatbot will query the API. It'll get all of the relevant context and generate an answer for you. And we even have a streaming endpoint. So it's got a very ChatGPT-like interface, and you can see the tokens come in as they're generated. And again, if you want this only available to the GM, or if you don't want anything to do with it, you can toggle all of that visibility inside the game settings under the Archivist settings tab under here. So the chat visibility, you can either have it available to the GM only, no one to see it, or for the GM and the players to have it. And same thing with all the other settings I talked about, the real-time sync, the projecting descriptions. If you need to rerun your world setup again, you can link it to a different campaign. You need to update your API key, the documentation's all here. So that is a very broad overview of this new mod that we're really excited to release, and hopefully more folks want to contribute to it and make it more robust and build more stuff on top of Archivist now that our API is available. But either way, thanks for watching and enjoy the new stuff.